Hello everyone, welcome to the Python User Interface Creation Tutorial. I am Charles from workfortuition.com. Today is the first official lesson. In this lesson, we will write our first interface. And let's see what the final product will be for this lesson. It will be a window like this, with 5 rows, with a text box in the first, and then text box and input. The last row would be 2 buttons. Okay, so before we start, we must understand how to code using modules. There are 4 steps to this process. Step number 1, we must import library. And then step 2 is to define a layout for our interface and pick which functions to use. Step number 3 is to create a window. The 4th step is to make event loop that corresponds to the window we just made. And then the last step is to close the window. This normally signifies that the code is finished. Okay, so let's start with the actual code. So number 1, the first step we need is to import libraries. So over here we're learning PySimpleGUI, so we're gonna do import PySimpleGUI as SG. Oh, okay, so the import has to be lowercase. And then we need to define a layout. So we're just gonna make a variable called layout. That's what normal people do. And then for layout, the layout is similar to a list, but it's not a list. And then every element inside the layout is a different row on the window that we created. So if we look at the window that we're going to create at the end, we have 1 row, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have to have 5 things. Four and 5. Okay, we'll worry about what elements we put in the layout later. Next, we should create a window. So for the window, we're gonna make the variable also called window. We do sg.window. Look out over here, the W for window has to be capitalized. And then we can put stuff in it. Like the first thing we put is title. We're going to name this Python GUI. Then comma, and then layout. The layout here is this. So this is telling us what the window is going to seem like. And then the 4th step is to create an event loop. So event loop is just a forever loop, also known as while true. And then inside this, we need to read what is happening. So we assign it to variables, event, and values. And then we give this to window.read. So window.read sees what is happening on the window, and if something happens, it goes to event, and whatever happens goes to values. And then we make if event equals none equals none. If event equals none, then break. Break means we will come out of this forever loop, and it will run the next line of code, which happens to be window.close. So with this, we will be able to actually close the window. Let's run this to see if we wrote anything wrong. So over here, since we didn't define any of the elements yet, it's just blank. So it shows we did everything correctly so far. Next, let's make the layout. So if we look at the picture, the first line is just a text box, which is answer the info below. So we can just do that. When we want to put text, we do sg.text with a capital T. We do sg.text, and then we're adding a string, so we're gonna use quotation marks, and then we do answer the info below. That's all we need for the first line. And then we look at the second line. The second line is name and then an input box. So there's two elements in that row. We do sg.text again with a capital T, and then for a string we do name. Then if we want to have two elements in the same row, we just use a comma. Then we do sg.input text. Notice here the I and T for input text are both capital. And then inside, since my name's Charles, I'll use Charles here. And then the next two lines are basically the same thing with different strings attached. So I'll just copy and paste this. And then I can change the string into gender, and for gender I am male, so I'll write male. And then nationality, I'm Canadian, so I'll write Canada. Then for the last line, if we look at the picture, it's two buttons. It's OK and cancel. So this is called sg.button with a capital B as well. And then we can just write a string of OK inside. And then if we want to have another button, we just separate it with a comma and then write sg.button. And then inside this one, we can write cancel. And then this should show us what our picture shows us. So if we compare this and our image, it is the same thing. And let's show you input boxes. So for sg.input text, this is something we can edit. The user can edit. So if we want, we can delete what is already inside. And let's use my sister for an example. We can use Rachel. And then she's my sister, so she's female. And then she is also Canadian, so we can do this. But notice, if we use the buttons, nothing happens. It's because during the event loop, we didn't define what the buttons can do. That will be done. We will show you how to do that in the following videos. Alright, this concludes lesson 1 of my lesson on PySimpleGUI. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next lesson. And remember, learning at work for tuition is easier than addition.